Hey guys, this is John from US Dash Camera, and I got another review for you today of another Lukas dash camera. So this is the LK-9370, which is a Wi-Fi camera with two channels, full HD front and rear. So that's 1080p up front, 1080p in back. And in addition to the Wi-Fi, it does actually have an LCD screen, unlike the previous Lukas camera I tested. So Lukas did send this to me for review. Now, they make pretty full-feature dash cameras with a lot of official accessories, so they did send me a couple of the accessories. You can see that the power cord that plugs into the cigarette jack actually is separate. Lukas tends to include the hardwiring kit because it makes more sense to have a more permanent installation anyways. So they also sent the circular polarizing lens filter and a USB adapter. So let's get this open. So this one is a 24 gigabyte model, which means it actually comes with a 8 gigabyte card and a 16 gigabyte card. One is micro SD and one is full SD. Here you can see there is actually an option for OBD, or onboard vehicle diagnostics. But with that, it can give you a lot of information, such as your car's voltage or heat or different specifications about how your car is running at that given time. So here's a little quick manual with the quality assurance on here. It does show you how to get the app, how to install everything, including the hardwiring kit, so that's pretty important. But let's skip that and just get right to the camera. Now this camera is pretty big. It's bigger than the last Lukas camera I tested. I'll provide a link down below to my previous review. I do like the color of the black on this a little bit more. The previous one had a little bit of a shiny gray. And here you can see I'm trying to twist off the filter. Now this isn't the CPL, this is a UV filter that comes with every camera. There's the Wi-Fi dongle. So the Wi-Fi is included, but it's not built in. So overall, the camera feels really nice and sturdy. It's pretty hefty. It almost feels like it's higher quality than the previous Lukas camera I tested, but that's likely just because it's heavier. So I don't know if it's actually any better plastic or any better of a build, but overall it does feel pretty nice. The only thing I would really change is having all matte black. The front silver is very noticeable in your car when you install it. So on the side we got the memory card ports, a power switch, a TS in, a cam in for the rear camera. And here you can see one is micro SD. One will actually be recording normal driving and one will actually be recording the motion detection parking mode. So that way you do have two separate cards. And like I said, it has the cam in, so this is the rear camera. It uses just a standard mini USB, which is always nice if your cable goes bad. So here's the full-size SD card, 16 gigabytes. So we can insert that onto the side. I do like the idea of having two memory card slots. The Mini 0806 also had two slots, but it was both micro SD. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of these accessories. We got the cable for the rear camera. Actually has little tags on it, front and rear. Sort of wish they didn't have these though, because I would probably black them out just so they're not noticeable in your window. We got the hardwiring kit, which will connect to your fuse box, and with this you can actually record while your car is off, such as in a parking lot. That way if someone hits your car while you're parked, it'll actually record. Got a little bag full of accessories like the adhesives, some cable clips, and an Allen wrench, or hex wrench. Then we got two different installing brackets. So this one just slides in pretty easily. I like this one because it's smaller and easier, where this one here actually will allow you to tilt it a little bit. At first I didn't even know what it was or what the point of it was. It actually just seemed like it was harder to pull in and out until I saw the manual and it actually said you can tilt it like this, so that's pretty cool. If your window's at a slight angle, it could help you get a better picture. But like I said, it is a lot harder to take it out of this. So I'm still going to just use the slide in one. So again, these little red adhesives in the bag are for the different mounts. Got a couple for each of the front mounts, and then the small ones are for the rear camera. So none of them come on the actual cameras, so all of the ones that come in this bag are what's included. That hex wrench included is to adjust the tilt of the camera, so you do have to loosen it up. So once you get it loose and get the correct angle that you need for your car's windshield, then you can just tighten it back up. So this is the UV filter I was trying to take off earlier. It is pretty tight. But there's also the CPL filter which I received. And this is a separate purchase, but if you don't already know, the CPL filter is to reduce glare in your windshield. So it can actually provide a better image. There are some drawbacks, but overall they're pretty useful, especially if you mostly drive during the day. You can use them at night, but it also will give you a darker image. Now I don't want to really give a physics lesson on light, but you do actually have to spin the CPL to block the optimum amount of light. Here's another one I had. So like I said before, this comes with a UV filter also, and you can actually install both of them at the same time. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get these on, at least straight. So there you can see both of the lenses install on just fine, and I'm really impressed with how smooth the CPL is. So also included is just a little micro SD card adapter, so if you got a SD card reader in your computer, you can always use this adapter. And then of course the cigarette power cable, so if you don't want to hardwire it, this is always an option. Or you could use it in a secondary vehicle with this, because you do have two front mounts. Although it's not going to be easy to use both cameras, the camera does work with just the front if you want. Since I have so many cameras and other electronics already hardwired into my car, I will be using the cigarette power cable in this test. So let's go ahead and power this camera on, and I'll show you through the menu. I really do like Lucas's menus, and they all do have voice alerts too.
Black box. Drive safely.
So there you can see, it's giving a live feed of both the front and rear camera. We got the Wi-Fi on the top right to turn on or off. It's pretty easy. Let's go right into the menu. So here you can see playback. Now when you go to playback, the recording actually stops, and you can filter through the front or rear cameras and watch files you've already recorded. That is pretty useful since you do have a screen. But I'm not going to go too in-depth with this. I typically just actually take the memory card out and watch files on my computer. I personally find that easier or more convenient for me to sit at a desk to do this. So now let's get into the main settings menu. Here we got video. So we got image quality front and rear, brightness quality front and rear. And I really appreciate this feature because Blackview cameras or other two-channel system cameras I've used didn't allow you to set the brightness or image quality front and rear separately. And also we got the reverse image, so this is something if you really wanted to use the rear camera as a parking camera, you could do that, because ideally with a parking camera you want the image reversed. But you also do want that installed down by your bumper, which isn't optimal for dash camera use. So here we got different sound settings. These are pretty standard, other than the voice guidance, which is very impressive, how many different languages it has. I felt like it was never actually going to end flipping through this. Because it just keeps going on and on. Okay, back to English. So now the LCD, we got some pretty standard settings. How long you want the screen to turn on or stay on for. The brightness, we got the night brightness settings, and a touch calibration option. So all of these are really easy to understand and use. So now we got some basic settings like the G sensor. I have my parking mode sensor all the way up, but driving all the way down because I personally don't care for using a G sensor while driving. So if you do hit a bump or something or get in an accident, it'll save that video file as an event. Here we got auto parking, which depending on how you have this connected, you'll have to adjust that to your own liking. I set it to about 5 minutes, so after 5 minutes of sitting still, it'll actually switch to the parking mode. Here we got an SD card allocation, so here you can see the motion sensing and always recording is on one memory card. Now this is pretty cool too. It actually lets you set what part of the image the motion detection is alerted by, and then you can change what corner the picture-in-picture is shown in. The additional settings, we got continuous power supply. So I'm going to be using an external power supply, my cell link B, which means I'm not actually using the hardwiring kit. If you're using the hardwiring kit, you would turn the external power supply off and use the voltage and timer, and this way it's going to go off your car battery, and you can set what voltage the camera will actually shut off so you don't drain your car battery, or how long you want it to go for, so you don't drain your car battery. Where my cell link B, I don't care if it dies because it's not going to really affect my car battery very much. The cell link B basically just gives me an ability to record for a longer time in parking mode without relying on my car battery, and it recharges while I drive. But I use so many different cameras, which is why I sort of need it. With just a single 2-channel system like this, you're probably going to be okay with just the hardwiring kit. Now, quickly going back there, actually, one thing I'm pretty impressed by is the cable voltage loss feature, because I don't think I've seen this in any other camera, but I assume that adjusts for longer cables where you might actually lose some voltage over the length of that cable. And again, we got some independent control of the security LEDs for the front or rear camera. I really like that everything is adjustable between front and rear. And you can use the rear camera on or off during parking mode. So OBD, I don't have that, so I can't test that. There you can see once you leave the menu, the recording starts again. We got some memory card options here. So you can format the memory cards here, and what's interesting is it does have this automatic formatting, but personally I wouldn't want this because with my luck it would probably format over my video when I actually needed it. Here we got some date and time settings, and what's pretty cool is there is actually the full manual in here. So this is actually more in-depth than the little paper manual that came with it. And on the live screen you can actually switch between the different video live feeds. You'll notice there's a slight delay, but nothing too terrible. That does make a big enough difference though, where if you wanted to use the rear camera as a parking camera, then you would have to consider that. So next, let's go ahead and look at the app. So I did finally pick up an Android device. This is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1, which I felt would be ideal for demonstrating apps or using in my car. So most of this is going to be pretty much the exact same stuff, just presented differently. So you'll see as I go through here though, all of these options are actually the same. It is nice to have though. I actually prefer using a Wi-Fi app because if I turn the Wi-Fi on, I can just connect with my iOS or Android device and I can sit back and go through the menu or watch files without leaning forward and trying to read the camera screen, or you don't have to take the camera down either. Typically with these apps you can also save files to your phone or tablet. That way you don't have to take the memory card out if you just want to save one file. This would be useful for backing up files after an accident also. So this menu is presented more as a list, but it's very easy to use. Has all the same features as the menu in the actual camera or on the camera screen. What's strange is the last camera I used with Wi-Fi actually had some settings that were only able to be set while using the app. Now with this app, I did notice that there are Wi-Fi settings on here that didn't seem to be available on the camera's built-in menu, and also there was a vehicle registration option on the app, so it does seem like a couple of the features are missing on the actual camera's menu, but nothing vital. One of the previous cameras I tested that had a Wi-Fi app, you could only actually change the video resolution to the advertised 1296p if you had the app, which I found a little strange. Overall, I really like this app. I think Wi-Fi or smartphone apps are a real big selling point for me, so it's nice to have this option. And with this camera you have the Wi-Fi app option, or you can actually just use the screen, so you get the best of both worlds. As long as you don't mind using a bigger camera. Now there were a couple other small accessories that you can get. Like I said, there's this USB adapter. It's just for a full-size SD card, in case you don't have an SD card reader for a full-size SD. Could put this on your keychain pretty easily. But there's also this stylus, which I was sort of surprised by. I felt like the touchscreen was really nice and I didn't really need a stylus. But it's nice that they think of all these different accessories that people might want to use. So let's go ahead and take a look at some footage now. So the bitrate is pretty low on this camera. That's still pretty expected with a lot of dual channel cameras. This one's full HD in front and rear, and they get about equal bitrate front and rear. The highest I've seen it was 7 megabits per second, but it is a variable bitrate, so it can go up and down, and you'll actually notice during scenes that have a lot of movement going on back and forth, it starts to get blocky. That's a pretty common problem with the black view cameras too, especially the 2-channel ones. Here in this picture you can see there's a lot of reflection on this sunny day, so that's where the CPL comes in handy. If you pay attention to the white package on my dashboard, you'll see the reflection gets stronger and darker. So while I spin the CPL, it actually will reduce the glare, and you want it to obviously be at the point where it's going to reduce the glare the most. So this is how the CPL can give you a much better picture, because you're not going to have a lot of distractions like the reflections in your window. This could also help you see detail that you might have otherwise missed without the CPL. Now, unfortunately, there hasn't been any cameras with a CPL for the rear, but I don't think most people will want to use it anyways, because a lot of people like to take the CPL off at night or don't want to use it at all times, such as cloudy days. So who really wants to go to the back seat of your car and take that off when you don't want to use it? But that means you're going to have a lot of glare in your rear window at all times. So this clip I actually included an audio sample. The audio is nothing special, but typically audio in dash cameras isn't anything special, but sometimes people do want to hear how it sounds. This camera does fare pretty well at night. It seems to pick up a lot of dark spots very well. Now this is a pretty well lit city, but one thing I point out, or like to point out in a lot of videos when I show night footage, is how much bloom effect there is around lights. So when I look at night footage, I really want all of the street lights or other people's car headlights to be very well defined. I do want them to light up the environment around them, but I don't want a bunch of bloom effect that just hogs up the screen with cloudy amounts of light. Some of the cheaper Chinese cameras seem to have that issue. So I felt like this camera's night footage was pretty well defined. And even with this camera's lower bit rate, it still looks like a pretty decent image. I think with any two-channel system currently, you sort of have to sacrifice image quality a bit to get that especially two live 1080p feeds. But I do wonder if the camera didn't have a screen or Wi-Fi or just one or the other, if maybe the camera could actually get a little higher quality footage with higher bitrate. I'm not an expert on bit rates or photography, so I can't be for sure, but it does seem like maybe this camera's bitrate is sort of low because there's so many different features and stuff going on with this camera at all times. Like I said, there is also the obd function, which I don't have, but that's another feature that it could be processing or having to deal with while you're driving. It does seem like all of the best quality image cameras are really basic cameras that don't have all of these special features, so maybe there is some truth to that with all these special features it takes more processing power away from rendering a good quality image. So overall, I have mostly positive impressions of this camera. The big thing, of course, is always going to be the image quality. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I'm not a total videophile. I can put up with lower bitrate. My main cameras are Blackview cameras, which have quite a bit lower bitrate than other cameras like the Street Guardians. But to some people, the highest quality video is important, and this camera isn't for you then. But I'd also say that any two-channel system camera isn't for you if highest quality video is your main concern. At that point, you're better off getting two separate single-channel cameras and using them both together at the same time to get the best video quality from each. My other main issue is the form factor of this camera. I'm not a big fan of the silver on the front. It's very noticeable in the front of your car, and it's also a really large camera. But that's gonna happen when you have such a nice big LCD screen. So who would I say this camera is actually for then? I'd say as long as you don't mind the lower bitrate and video quality or the form factor of this camera, this is definitely a great option. The fact that it has so many features like the GPS, the Wi-Fi, the nice LCD screen with a really easy to use menu, the optional OBD, 2 memory card ports, the fact that you can actually control the front and rear camera settings independent of each other, it's all just really impressive, and this really is a real feature-packed camera system. So I would definitely take a look at it if you can go past its few shortcomings. So that's my review of the Lukas LK-9370. Again, I'd like to thank Lukas for sending this to me for review. I currently don't know where you can purchase this. Once I find a place, I will provide a link down below. So check down below, I may have updated it since posting this video. If you like this video or my other videos, I'd appreciate if you hit like and subscribe. As usual, drive safe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.